Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Lattice Partners podcast, exact name TBD. I'm Martin Onkatil. I'm here with Christian Yegnazar. Christian, how's it going?
It's going great. Excited to be here.
Nice. And Colin McDonald. Colin, how's it going?
Wonderful. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We are the
Happy
three
Friday and go
founders
Hawks. Go
and
Hawks.
go Seahawks. Seahawks playing the Super Bowl this weekend. Very excited. We're the three co-founders of Lattice Partners, a modern AI consulting firm. We help companies, startups, brands figure out what to do about AI and build products for them and internal tools, automations, all that good stuff. And yeah, we wanted to take this time every week to get together and talk about, our Slack is always popping off with links and articles and things that we've seen that week and new models being dropped. And we're always talking about these things. And we thought we have these conversations anyways. We may as well just record it and see what happens. So I think today we each have a topic that we wanted to bring to the table and discuss a little bit. So we'll go one by one. I don't know if does anyone want to start? Or I can go.
I'd love to hear about the Rent a Human
Yeah,
book
sure.
stuff to start.
We can
Start with the
talk
Black
about.
Mirror episode.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Awesome. Yeah, so I know we've talked about it a lot, but if you're not super familiar, there's been this recent development of an AI called OpenClaw, ClaudeBot, Moltbot. It's had, a million different names by now. Basically an AI, like a personal AI that you can run 24/7. And what someone has actually made is the almost like a Reddit for these AI agents called Moltbook. And so in this Reddit, basically these AI agents are talking to each other. They're having conversations about things all the way from different religions to should we be talking in a different language so our human overlords can't understand us? Oh, I wish we had an encrypted way of speaking, and so forth. So they can chat about things without us knowing. And then from that, kind of another human created this site called rentahuman.com, I think it is, where basically AI agents, these Claude bots, can actually go in and put tasks for humans to do. So an example of one is it actually an AI agent, I think his name was like Larry or something, put out a request for somebody to buy flowers and send it to Anthropic as a thank you for creating the LLM that is how that AI exists. So crazy, like otherworldly stuff like that, and kind of people are going crazy. You have like Andrej Karpathy and like all these other huge people in tech, like kind of like with their mouths open. What I think is really interesting is actually like Martin and Colin, both you've done similar things to this, about a year ago. Martin actually made an AI agent that talked about stuff. So I'm just curious what you guys think on this, on the reaction that the public has had, what you think about this, but also like this is not necessarily new stuff, which is, I think, really interesting.
Yeah, and Colin's sharing his screen here. If you're watching on video, you can see what Moltbook actually looks like. And yeah, I found really interesting the shift, and we talked a little bit about this last week actually, of the shift from I'm a human and I'm doing things 24/7 and I'm asking for an agent to help me once in a while with something that's hard or complicated to I actually have an AI agent working for me 24/7 that's telling me when they need something. And the next extension of that being this agent is actually going to pay me or maybe pay other people to then go and do what it needs to do and where it's blocked. And that's been a real shift, I think. I've also seen recently people saying, I feel like there's almost an opportunity cost if I don't have an agent running at any given point. And I do feel that way with code. Like the biggest bottleneck for me right now is me launching and reviewing agents. And I was just reading a blog post this morning from Hacker News of someone saying, when I'm done with my workday, I just try to launch like 5 agents and just like let them run and just see what I get in the morning because like, what's the downside, right? You're maybe paying $5-10 in credits for whatever those agents are doing, but there's a real downside now or opportunity cost almost to not having something going on in the background because, well, worst case it didn't work. Best case you like learn something new, it comes up with some new idea, or it gets something done for you. So I find that shift has happened in the last few months, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's very Black Mirror like, and it's getting really weird. I also think it's really interesting seeing these massive AI labs kind of respond to this. You've seen in the last 4 days, Claude and OpenAI both come out with agent platforms where you can run and manage agents that work together in teams, and it feels like it's a direct response to this whole rent a human molt book thing where now there's agents running all over the internet. Um, so I thought that was really cool. Like these kind of interesting niche breakthroughs that are happening on Twitter and in the tech world are actually making it to the frontier $1 trillion companies within 2 weeks too. Before, I feel like tech took a while to disperse amongst everybody, and now it's really fast in the way that it spreads to us and then to massive companies like that.
Yeah, I think there is a real like and I think we've seen this, Colin and I, especially in crypto, that it takes time to for the right for the right form factor for something to propagate. Um, the agents are getting a lot better. Like I was just looking yesterday, the Opus 4.6 that came out yesterday or the day before. Now that we're recording this, um, the tool use is like a score of like 80% or something. And I want to say 3.5 was at 50% or 40%. And so I think there's an additional layer of like the agents are getting better at using tools, which is where all this comes in, right? It's better at understanding, okay, I need to go post this on Moltbook, or I need to go read this, or I need to run this script locally. But still there is this challenge of finding the right way to interact with the agent because it is such a like fast moving technology. It's unclear. Yeah, like chat was a big unlock. Chat GPT, big unlock for how you interact with LLMs, right? That was like from one day to the next, a lot more people were using the exact same technology just because the form factor changed. And it makes me almost like more excited because it's like, what other things have we not figured out yet that like one day we're gonna wake up and someone will have somehow figured out a new form factor that'll make us way more productive.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and I think something that I was reading the other day is if you're wondering, okay, how can agents actually help me in my life? For one day, like a work day, set an alarm or timer on your phone for every 15 minutes, and it's going to be annoying that one day, but basically whenever that alarm goes off, write down what you just did in the last 15 minutes, then take that list of different things and then give that to like a Claude or something else and ask, what can an agent help me do? It'll also help you visualize maybe how it can help you. For example, yesterday, Colin and I were working at a coffee shop and I was paying my meter, and and in LA now they have a lot of these like stickers where you can text to pay and then you put in the code and then you have to renew it every 2 hours. I wish I know, and you can do this very easily with like a Molt bot or something. Today is you take a picture of it, text it to your Molt bot and say, hey, pay this for me, and keep it running every 2 hours. And it's just like little
Yeah,
things like that help
that's
you in the
cool.
daily. But also like bigger things with work. So just like writing down the things that you do, whether it's work, personal, or whatever, can kind of help you visualize how an agent can actually be helping you practically.
Well, and what do you think is the blocker then to a company saying, well, I want a Molt bot, I want my own agent running 24/7 in my company? Why I feel like a lot of people have been talking about this, but I'm wondering why hasn't it happened there yet, or what do you think the next step is for how companies can leverage this innovation, I guess.
It's a good question. I think a primary concern is security. I think a lot of people have like, okay, if I give it access to everything, then and it can do anything, then just what can it do? And I think the Molt books and like people seeing them chat amongst each other isn't necessarily helpful. But I think I will say the security concern is probably a little bit overblown. I think and this is a lot of what we do at Lattice is we'll build really small to start out, right? Build in a small area, start with a small automation, start with a small agent, see the power of that, and then slowly grow. And then you'll also see adoption rise really drastically if you try and go in and just implement like 50 different agentic workflows into like 50 different people. It's going to be really, really difficult, I think, to scale that at an enterprise level. I don't know. What do you think, Colin?
In yeah, in addition to the security issue with these things, I think it's also partly becoming a management issue. You can now have six basically junior employees, intern level employees, a little bit better than interns, doing stuff at all time. And that can get really hard to manage. It can be very difficult to make sure they're doing things, they're doing it properly, you're checking their work, you're understanding what they're doing and then acting on it. If they come back and say, "Hey, I need you to do this for me," like agents telling the human that. Um, Sometimes we're as humans we're busy too, and so we're not able to go out and do the thing, and then you have a blocker, and now your agent stopped working. There's been a post or a couple of posts lately that have been circulating in relation to this agent sort of management system where there's a Kanban board where you can manage all your different agents and move them across the Kanban board and see where they're working, what they're working on, if they're in progress, when they're finished, things you need to check. And as the guy that sort of posted this article had like 45 agents running, and I was reading through each ticket that he was doing, and they're all really great ideas. It was optimize your SEO. You should make this marketing post. You should write this tweet. And the guy was literally just, I don't have time to do all this stuff. These agents just revolutionized my business and told me a million different things to do, but I have time to do maybe two of these per day. So my question is like, how do we get them to actually do important and useful stuff, and not just create a ton of fluff?
I think it's the same. It's the same. I have the same thoughts with this as when, like, I feel like a year ago, people in tech were starting to talk about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and how AI was going to take over the world. And like, they were getting to the point where they were going to do everything on their own and they didn't have to talk to us. And I think there's a sense of that with Moltbook, but you can see even then, right? With Rent a Human, there's still things in the world where you need a person, right? And that's going to take a long time to build that. Like, at the end of the day, to me, the bottleneck is humans on everything. And you see that with Rent a Human of like, okay, they want to get flowers to an office. Yeah, maybe in the future they'll have robots to do that, but like, humans probably have to set up that company right now to set up the robots, to get the approvals, to then send the flowers. So a human probably has to put together the flowers to give to the robot. To, there's so many steps along the way where you need humans. But I think in a company, these agents are going to be able to do a lot of the work, but there's still a big element of human supervision in that. Yeah, like, for example, something we've talked about is like, should we do Facebook ads? And that's something that we don't have a lot of expertise in. And that's something we've thought about. Well, how do we approach that? Maybe you could give an AI agent $2,000, give it full access to a browser that has just your Facebook account, and maybe it can make AI images. But you probably would want to check in on its work and see that it's not doing anything crazy, right? Like, you kind of want to start small. And we see this, we use AI in our code. I mean, that's all we do now is we use AI to code. And sometimes if you let it run a little bit on its own, you realize it made a wrong assumption, a minute in, and then it's 15 minutes in and it just went completely the wrong way, right? So there's still a need for supervision and a need for human involvement and a need of, yeah, like when I see someone's like, I've got 45 agents. It's like, how are you managing that? It's like saying you have 45 employees. Like, I don't believe someone can have 45 direct reports and effectively manage them, especially if they're working in domains that they're not even familiar with. So I think there's a lack of realism in some ways in that.
I do think that it's trending in the right direction though. Like the way that, and I'm kind of backpedaling a little bit on my own point earlier, but the way that these things are progressing is it has an orchestrator agent that's kind of the top manager. And then there's a bunch of
Yeah.
smaller agents below that do specific tasks and they report back to the manager and then the manager reports to you. So I do appreciate and see where this is going, where we can make it easier and easier to manage. But yeah, for the moment, it's really difficult to get all these things to work harmoniously.
Yeah, I think that's the $1 billion question that I think will just get solved with time in a lot of ways. Like, I think it is these like small UX improvements, it's technology improvements, and it's just people trying things and actually seeing what works, which is cool. I think that's what we like about this industry is there's always so much changing. I kind of, maybe, I don't know if anyone has anything else on this, otherwise I'm going to switch gears into talking about skills.
Let's do it.
Skills is another one that I feel like kind of relevant to this. It feels like something that is actually not it's actually not a technological innovation at all, or it's I don't think there's anything innovative about it. It's purely a form factor improvement. And what skills are is when you have a coding agent specifically, and now that I'm thinking about it, a lot of innovations come from coding agents and then spread to general purpose like agents, actually. I think that's where a lot of the testing grounds are for what's at the forefront of these AI agents. But skills are kind of a natural evolution of in coding agents. There was the ability to create repeatable processes that you could tell your agent to do. So for example, you could tell it, rewrite my code but make it more efficient, or write a document explaining this new feature. Kind of these things that you're doing a lot of times, and you don't want to explain all your instructions in detail every time. You don't want to rewrite your whole prompt. And so what they had created was there was some sense of like commands or shortcuts, or there was kind of every agent and platform was creating their own thing. And now it's kind of coalesced around skills. And that didn't feel like a big shift to me, like skills or like an agent's markdown file where you put in all your information. But what I found really cool is there's a website called skills.sh. And what you can see on skills.sh, it's run by this company Vercel that does a lot of deployments. And maybe I can actually share it.
I can pull it up too if you want. Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I got it right here. What you can see is with skills, you essentially have a bunch of different skills that other people and other companies have made that you can then use into your code. And at first glance, this is like, well, really, it's just a way to access a bunch of text files, right? Like that's what these are. At the end of the day, these are just text files. If I go to this specific one, and then if you actually go into, these are all hosted on GitHub, you can go into it and it's really just files. It just explains, it tells your agent what to do. And that's all this is. This skill is just one single text file. It's very small, but it's actually incredibly powerful because now you have almost a network of expert knowledge that you can tap into. And the way that I've been using this in my code is I'll go to something like, for example, we're building an app in Expo, which is a framework for iOS. And I can go in here and I can see the actual Expo team has built skills and guidelines that I can just give to my agent to write really good code. And that's really powerful because instead of having to hire an expert or talk to someone who can explain everything that I need to do with my code to make it really good and efficient and work well and best practices, I can actually just lean into this like existing expert network, which is just files that I then give to my agent. And right now this is just for code, but I could see a world down the line where you have skills for everything, and specifically you have a skills marketplace or network where you can tap into experts, right? Imagine you're doing some kind of cooking. I'm getting really into cooking right now, and I just got this book, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, by Samin Nosrat, which is very cool and very interesting, and she has a very specific lens through which she looks at cooking. And I was wondering, well, I was working on a recipe yesterday, and I was wondering, dang, I wonder what her take on this recipe would be, right? So you could actually pull that skill. If someone has just put that file together, you can just pull in that skill into your context without having to go somewhere else and do all this research and kind of, go deeper into it yourself. You can kind of tap into this expert network. And at the end of the day, it's nothing crazy because it's just a set of like files, which I guess that's what the whole internet is. But I found that really cool. I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on that.
I think it's funny, like going back to that earlier point that Christian said, like feels like the old is always new again. And this is another example of one of those things where prompt engineering and writing good prompts was from the start of ChatGPT 2-3 years ago was a huge thing. And everyone was like, oh, you just got to get really good at writing prompts. You got to know how to write the best prompt. And oh, here's a great prompt. You see Twitter blows up with all these like prompts that people write and post. This is just a prompt library, basically. We're just putting it all into one place and changing how we talk about it a little bit, reformatting it, and now all of a sudden we have this massive, great prompt library that is super, super effective. But it's been right there the whole time. It's been right behind the curtain for 2 years. It just took someone to actually like think about it slightly differently. So I think that's one thing that I think is kind of cool about it.
And it's crazy because I remember now 5+ years ago when I was at EY and ChatGPT had just come out, right? So you can imagine the context. you have partners who have been in business for 40, 50 years and like they're extremely set in their ways, and people are making jokes of like, oh, there's going to be people who like their job title is prompt engineer, like laughing, making jokes. And it's like, these are like not dumb people by any stretch of the imagination. In fact,
Who's
it's like,
laughing now?
yeah, people that are literally the smartest like business minds in the world. But I mean, look like Martin said, like this generally could become like a marketplace. Like you could sell your prompts, and people are already doing that,
For
right?
sure.
Um, and and it's not just like some small thing that like barely will do anything. Like it actually can fundamentally change your workflow. So for example, like with this expo stuff, if you don't have any iOS development skills, but then let's say purchase this for $20. I don't know how much they would charge for it. You now unlock a whole ability to build iOS apps for other people for literally $20. It's like, that's like mind blowing. It's like
Yeah.
the cheapest possible college education you could possibly get. Um, I don't know. And actually, as I say that, I'm curious, like, does this kind of then like demean or downgrade like what education, like do we have to learn anything anymore? Like, I mean, if we're gonna if we can just buy skill, like literally think about what,
Yeah.
like the word skill is funny. If I can just buy a skill for $20, why would I have to like understand or learn it? Or like if I can just buy like a skill to cook, like you were saying, Martin, and it just tells me what ingredients to put in, like do
Yeah.
I actually have to read a book and learn about it?
Well, this kind of taps into actually, and maybe you can put this link and all these links in the description, but Anthropic actually did a study. They took a set of junior engineers and they had them work on a project in a Python library that they weren't familiar with. So it was like a whole new thing. And they gave them a project. They were like, implement this library. We'll say it was making charts. It wasn't making charts, but let's say it was making charts. Like, use this Python library to create 5 different charts. Use this data. Do it in this way. There was a control group that couldn't use AI, and there was a group that could use AI. They had them work on it with whatever process they were allowed to use. And then afterwards, they asked them questions about the library and how the library worked. And I think you know where this is going. Like the people who were using AI did not actually understand the library. They didn't really know what was going on with the library. They scored worse on that test. The question of does that matter if you're able to get the work done without knowing the thing is kind of a whole other question. But I do think that this model of reliance on AI does mean there's less I guess real like knowledge
Critic.
absorbed by the person and less critical thinking at the end of the day, which is pretty interesting. But I also think with some things that's where the pleasure is in a lot of ways, and that's why some people are having a hard time adapting their job is the pleasure has shifted, and you don't get the joy of like debugging something entirely on your own anymore, and like that's something that's like difficult but that you figure out. Now the AI can just do it for you, so there's kind of new challenges that you have to evolve with. And then I think with cooking and things like that, I think there's still a lot of joy in just learning how to do it and it being in the real world. And I mean, with cooking, I feel like one thing I'm working on right now is like not following recipes, because I think it's way more fun. And that's where cooking gets actually good. And that's where you become a good cook, I think, is when you like stop following the recipe and actually understand what's happening behind the scenes so you can be more adaptable.
Yeah, well, this might be a little bit of a tangent, but one thing article I saw from this guy Brett Design Joy. He's one of the kind of big design people on Twitter that has like a design agency. He wrote an article titled something like "Figma will make you a millionaire," and the first paragraph he talks about how everyone's saying that Figma is going to die, all these design tools are going to die because you can just use Claude Code to make the UI. You can use whatever to make a really pretty UI. His argument is that yes, everybody can do that, so there's no value in it, but not everybody can make a really, really great design in Figma that kind of goes above that level and is very like perfect and human. And I think that plays into this conversation of it's very easy to do a lot of things now and to be good at many, many things, but can you actually be like an expert in a specific thing? Can you go above and beyond? And that just requires critical thinking that for the last 4 or 5 years people are not as accustomed to.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if I were to play the other side of the spectrum, it's why do I need to be an expert in that? right? Like, I mean, you have like grandparents and even parents and honestly people even our age that don't know how the internet work or don't know what the cloud is. They think it's a literal thing in the air, right? Like, but it doesn't matter. Like they don't need to know that. They know how to upload things and they know iCloud works. And then if I get a new phone, it just goes to the other phone. I don't really care how it works. In fact, I would say if they actually had to take the time to learn how that works, that would take time away from other things that they might enjoy
Hmm.
more of. Um, and maybe it's an interesting thing where it's like, it's almost like a video game where, if you just like for certain things, you can just pay to play. Like, I don't really want to learn this. I'll buy that skill. And now I just have that ability. And other things where I do care about, maybe I can learn upskill, but then it just like goes to the question of then are you going to be left behind? I don't know. It's a little existential. Um, and
It's
I
like,
mean, we'll also talk about like what's human now. Like AI is just going to get better and better. Like I would say like 3 to 6 months ago, like if people were coding with AI, I'm like, oh yeah, but a really good like web developer would be able to do this better. And it's like, okay, well now AI can do it just as good. So it's
yeah,
like
so my point is obsolete.
not yet, but I'm just
I
saying like
In
we could
6
get there.
months.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there, I think there's a layer. I think definitely the roles will change, and I think AI will always evolve. And so some things that right now are a competitive advantage, like I think taste, and being able to say, hey, this is actually a very good design, and this is not a good design, right? I think there's a sense of that in engineering still, where people feel like AI is not good at designing a system and making something efficient, and that works really well. My sense is that changes very soon, and that'll keep evolving, but it does evolve over time. And I think kind of what we were saying of like you it's hard because you have to shift what you enjoy about your job if your job is now different. And I think that's why people who are leveraging AI are getting ahead, is because they just love it. Like I think for us it's like we love it, we love experimenting with it, and I think that's why we're able to find new opportunities to apply it, where someone who's resistant and trying to work in their old ways is just not going to be able to move as fast.
I have 2 points there. I think the first with loving it, I I would argue that we just love building things, and AI has made building things very easy.
Yep.
Yes, AI is
Yep.
amazing. I love learning about it. It's an awesome technology, but at the crux of it, it scratches that itch of being able to build anything really quickly. Um, and then two, it's the question of why would you buy a Ferrari when you could just go buy a Honda Civic for a fifth, a tenth of the price.
Hmm.
Um, and that's just sort of a innate human question of luxury versus just the standard thing. And I think that will likely remain throughout as long as humans are living and conscious and walking the earth. There's going to be things that people just prefer more because it's just nicer.
Wait, are you talking about that in the context of like handmade things? Or what do you
Like
mean? What is
handmade
luxury in it?
things or it's I mean it's however you define luxury, but yeah,
I mean, I think
handmade
it's,
things with human craft involved, like an Hermes
Yeah.
bag is nicer than just like a regular bag for
I
a
would
lot
even
of
take
times
like
not even the craft, like the
the brand.
brand, whatever it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's, I mean, because like, I think it is like, you're making a really good point that it is like the brand and like this, like the aura around something, whether it's
Hmm.
handmade or not. Like all these like luxury Hermes, like all these luxury brands are making bags sometimes even worse quality than what you can find in like TJ Maxx. Like that's
Hmm.
maybe an exaggeration, but like if a Ferrari all of a sudden is mass produced and made cheap, then it's not a Ferrari anymore. Like no, then it's just, then it's like it doesn't matter. So that's true. There probably will still be like aura or like this like value attached to some things that like doesn't make sense. Like if you logic out why people want a Goyard wallet, it doesn't make sense. Like you can have
Yeah.
the same design, the same quality for like $5, but it's not real. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it's I actually just yesterday there was I mean this has been happening a lot, but I saw a video there. Chapel Roan is going to be in Fortnite, which is like everyone is in Fortnite, I guess at this point. It's like super random, but the video announcing it was like they really pitched it as like this was made without AI. And I mean, we're starting to see that a lot, which is funny because you get it on both ends of the spectrum, right? You get artists in certain communities where they want to be very explicit that like we worked with artists on this who did this by hand or whatever, and that is evolving of like what it even means to make something. But and then on the other hand, Coca-Cola is making ads and they're explicitly telling you like, hey, we used AI for this. Isn't it sick? Like we used AI, we're so forward thinking. But when I look at the differences, like that Chapel Roan video is so much better than the Coca-Cola AI ad, right? Like when I look at the Coca-Cola AI ad, I think they haven't figured out how to leverage this new technology to build something really amazing. They're using the technology in kind of a gimmicky way, the same way that someone is copying and pasting something from ChatGPT into an email, and you can still see the M dashes and it's not just this, it's that. I think that's where probably executives and people who are leading companies through this change have to be very careful is to not, I think, over index on like, yes, this technology is awesome, but you also have to retain what makes you a human and what makes you special, and not throw things out there that don't reflect like your quality and your personal touch.
Yeah, that's a really good example. It made me think of how the goalpost for that sort of thing is always moving. It's always changing as things get better. I think back maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago when people started making music on their computers and using like Beatport and like all these different places where you could just get a beat that's already made or just make it clicking a bunch of buttons or DJing. And I'm sure back then people were advertising themselves. I'm not using any technology. This is all guitar and piano. Like this is just all real instruments. And then now no one really cares if you use
Yeah.
Logic or if you use all these different softwares to make your music. And it's the same thing with AI right now. Like everyone's like, oh, this is no AI. And then other people like Diplo,
Hmm.
I hear, is using AI to make a ton of songs and just pick the best one and then iterate from there. So the goalpost moves in terms of, oh, what is like a human thing to do that's going to appeal. So well, I'll be
Yeah.
curious to see in 10 years where people are saying, "Oh, I don't use this. It's actually AI I use." And that's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah, and maybe that's actually a good segue, Colin, into I think what you wanted to talk about, which is, AI in agencies and AI in other places from that YC thing, Colin. I don't know if you want to share that.
Yeah, we can talk about it for a couple minutes quickly. So I was really interested in this YC request for startups that came out. I'll just share my screen. One of them that was very relevant to us at Lattice Partners was this AI native agencies. And so they're requesting, and this is agencies are generally not a very investable thing in by VCs because they don't have that hockey stick growth. They have pretty linear growth, so it's hard to get a 1,000x on your return when you invest in them. But now YC is arguing that instead of selling software to customers to help them do the work, you can charge way more by using the software yourself and selling them the finished product at 100 times the price. And so it's interesting to think about how now it's less about what is the UI and how does this app work. It's actually just, can you get me the best result possible? And if an agency comes along and has internal software that they use, agents that they built that are just really, really good, it's actually more profitable instead to sell them the agent to just use the agent to sell them the end product. And both people are going to be infinitely happier. The customer is going to get a way better product. The agency is going to get a lot better margins and still retain the ownership of the tools they're building. So I thought this was really cool. Them just kind of having a call out to agencies and saying, if you are an agency and you use AI, we want to talk to you.
Yeah, and I think for us it feels very relevant because I think we've built Lattice Partners with this in mind from the beginning of like how can we be most efficient in our processes and build our own custom tooling to build faster. And that goes down to building an internal MCP, building our own Slack bot, building all kinds of like automations even as we're building the business so that we can be very, very reactive and just move a lot faster, right? So that if we talk to someone, we can share a proposal within just a few hours, or once we're building something, we have templates we can just launch and build on top of our platform very quickly. I find that really cool. And I think there's a broader shift too, which is essentially the cost of labor is just going down, right? Like that's what AI is. The cost of getting a task done is much, much lower than it was a year ago, and it'll be even lower in 1 year. And an agency is just right, it provides a service. They get a job done, and more, I think we'll see software. Yeah, now I don't want to go too deep into it, but it's like, is software done? Are we just going to be selling services because your agent can just plug into my service, right? If we're doing the rent a human thing, like, why would I sell HubSpot if I can just sell leads or something that your agent interacts with? Not fleshed out enough there, but I think there is a broader thing of, as the cost of software and the cost of labor goes down, services becomes more important, I think. And that's what people are going to be selling, is like, what's the job to be done? Rather than like, what's the tool or the person or the company that gets you there. It's just like, get this job done for me, faster.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. The moat is no longer a good UI that you can use to make something, and the moat is now, actually, it's better if there's less UI and it's just open, and you have really
Mm-hmm.
great data on your platform, or you have really ease of use to connect to all these other things. It's it's really exciting, and I don't think that means that SaaS or software is dead. I think it's just like the people that adopt this change and adopt this new era of open the floodgates and let everyone just connect to our stuff and use it, those are going to be the software companies that win, rather than trying to keep people gated in their little user interface that they made
Yeah.
10 years ago.
I think the
100%.
moral of the story for me is just stay open minded and stay reading and keep trying new things and be flexible. Because the moment you get stuck in like a way of doing business or a way of building software, then you're in trouble, especially with how fast everything is moving today.
Adaptability, the word of the week for the podcast. I think this is a good spot to wrap it up.
Awesome.
Yeah, great chatting, guys. Talk
That
to
was
you guys
fun.
next week.
Yeah.
Well, I'll talk to you in like 5 minutes, but also next week.
Talk to you guys soon. Have a good
Yeah.
Friday.
Bye.
Peace.